I'm against the wall. Let that being said, but I'm for strong border security. I would like to say King's language is important. He said, white nationalists, white supremacists, Western civilization. How did that language become offensive? This is very clear. It's very clear racist language from Congressman King. And I think that is what, but I'm just saying, when we broad stroke everyone, I would like our show, and I've said this many times, to be above that. To be above broad stroking people into different pockets that they're in.
We're trying to be like that.
Do you think 42% of Americans are racist?
I just said I don't know. That's why I'm also asking the question.
Isn't that the problem?
Trump is racist?
Make one point. Then half the country is racist.
Concentrating on Steve King. Do we know Trump is racist?
Just concentrating on
Okay, stop. I can't follow anything that's happening now because everybody's talking at the same time.
Can I just make one small tiny point?
Make your point.
My tiny point is that I don't think that we concentrate on Steve King. There's always racist people.
I only said that because it's the topic we're discussing on A block right now.
Can I just make
No, I'm not done.
Well, you did just call 42% of the country. There was an implication that they could be racist, which is something that obviously, when you're talking about Republicans in general, that is obviously something that's going to make Abby and I uncomfortable.
Check the platform, not the person.
I am John McCain's daughter. I am not someone who sits here and is okay with racism in any way whatsoever.
Daughter. He's a racist.
I'm just saying. I think.
And I'm Whoopi Goldberg, and we'll be right back.
With his big new plans for supporting undocumented immigrants getting lots of buzz.
On a totally different note.
And look who else is hitting the view. Judd Apatow, Regina Hall, and Don Cheadle hang with the ladies. This week on The View on ABC. Later, Vladimir Putin's public enemy #1, Bill Browder, on what he thinks of the FBI probe into Trump and Russia, and why he says Putin wants him dead.
Welcome back. So, diversity in the media. We're actually on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Diversity in the media is a hot topic, shockingly, after White House Washington Post reporter Chelsea Janes covered Senator Kamala Harris's speech at Harris's alma mater at Howard University. Now, the speech was attended by the AKA sorority that Harris pledged in college, who gave her their trademark ski week call. And it prompted the reporter to tweet, members of her Howard sorority are in the room, and screeched when she mentioned her time there. Did not expect to hear screeches there. She was immediately kind of called out on social media for not knowing about the ski week. So the question is, was she the right person to cover the event? Do you do your homework if you know that? And apparently both folks she went
First of all women talking at all are screeching to some people in the media. If we just open up our mouths, we're screeching and hysterical. So that I would like to just change coming out the gate. We were talking about in the meeting that I have always wanted journalists for every network and publication to have a gun beat, to have someone who actually understands guns when, God forbid, a shooting happens or anything with gun legislation happens, people who actually understand the difference between, I don't know, an assault rifle and a semi-assault rifle. So I don't have a problem with diversity with journalists in general. I think everybody got everything wrong in 2016. And having a whole new swath of journalists coming in is a good idea.
I mean, to put it into context, right, I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha. Today is our Founders Day. That's why I'm wearing a sweatshirt that says 1908.
I thought that was the year you were born for a second.
Yeah, no, 1908 is when we were founded. Today is our Founders Day. We were founded 111 years ago. We're the first black sorority that was founded. That was not a great one because my voice is. And what was shocking to me was, if you are the reporter following Kamala Harris, then at Howard University, where our sorority was founded, you should know that she's a member. You should know that that is our sorority call.
She knew that, right?
Pink and green.
She did know that.
She must not have.
I thought you said she just didn't know the screech.
I don't know. She said members of her sorority. I mean, you would think skiwis are called.
I could see where you might not know that little detail. I mean, not every reporter knows every single thing.
But the entire room is doing it. I remember, just to try to I mean, this is something that I think you should know. Michelle Obama is an AKA. I mean, this is not rocket science. And the interesting thing is, and the reason there is an AKA is because black women weren't allowed to join white sororities in 1908. So it was a matter
in
of
1961,
necessity.
I wasn't allowed to join a Jewish sorority. I wasn't allowed to join other sororities. They kept me out of many sororities.
Well, right, but the point of this, the point of this is that the question is, do you have to be a black reporter to report this story, given that this young lady apparently didn't know that Skiwi was
You have to be a reporter that does her job.
An informed reporter. I don't know if the
well, she was
matters.
an informed reporter, someone that does the research.
Well, she was demolished on Twitter for tweeting that. So in a way, I think it was a good thing to happen because as the embeds are all getting ready to go out and cover the 2020 campaign, it's a lesson that it shouldn't. I don't think you need a black person to represent a black candidate. If anything, that keeps you in your own world. I think we need to keep learning from each other. But to your point, you got to know who you're following.
But Pat,
you got to do your
beyond that,
research.
if it's a bunch of men cheering on a male candidate, are they screeching? No.
Well,
these are loaded words. Screeching, hysterical. They're things that are said about women in general across the board.
This was a woman writing about other women. So the question...
I'm not saying women are immune to attacking other women.
But the question still remains, does it have to be a person of color, or would an informed journalist had a better feel for what the hell they were doing?
She did apologize, and I will say I immediately got on Twitter because I was just there for the ratio, and I was there for the dragging because maybe I'm petty like that. And I was really interested in what the exchanges were like, and a lot of people came from a perspective of trying to teach her about the organization, and I thought that was wonderful to see.
That's why I think that's a good.
But there was so many, you know what's like? There's so many white sororities out there. I guess the point is that this is one of the few really important black sororities, and that's in that case you're right. She should have known every detail of it because you don't have that much research to do.
There's a million
sororities
black
out
fraternities
there.
and sororities.
Yeah, exactly.
I also think there's a real laziness today when it comes to journalism. There's some great journalists out there. And Megan and I have both been through campaigns, and we've seen firsthand the difference in someone that is really there to do the job.
I don't agree with this at all. They seem to be hardworking people. The New York Times reporters, the Washington Post reporters, they are on the job 24/7.
How many campaigns have you been on where you had them following you and knew they're biased? I mean, they're great, great journalists.
They weren't hardworking. I'm to that point.
No, I'm not saying they weren't hardworking.
Embeds are hardworking.
You said lazy or something.
An embed has to cover a candidate every day and go to
There are
cities.
folks that I think can be lazy today because you can go on Twitter and you can just read a few facts and it's like, I know what I need to know to cover this person and to cover this story, and that's when you get it wrong versus doing it the old school way.
I am surprised that someone that would be covering a potential presidential candidate,
isn't she
right? That was laziness
would not know everything about
or maybe, and Whoopi made this point in the meeting that maybe they think that they're already right. So even if they are being told something different, they don't want to hear it.
But the interesting thing is, if you're in a room of all these people singing, I remember when I went to college, I'm from the Bronx, I never heard of Sweet Caroline. I never heard that song, and I was in the college.
Really, you never heard of Sweet Caroline?
Never heard that song. Never heard that song. So I was at the party, and everybody's like, Sweet Caroline, and I was like, oh, wow, this song is like really important to all these people.
Let
me make my point.
Here's the point you have to make right now, because look over at Rob. Look over at Rob.
Can I make the point very quickly? Well, can I make the point very quickly?
Do it really fast.
So the point is, that was not a cultural thing for me. I asked around. Everybody got to say, at that point. Yes, I wasn't making fun of people around, but I engaged in what was like a cultural moment.
We got you. We'll be right back.
I know everything.
But
and there's a lot of support for it, but as always, there's a backlash from people saying it demonizes all masculinity. Well, sometimes people see what they need to see in order to make their argument. Okay, so I think anything that celebrates trying to make it better is a good thing, is a good step forward. But for some reason, this has irritated people.
I've always found it's those that are the most negative that are the ones that need to make the change most. and they're not listening to that. I love the moment where the dad's looking in the mirror with her little girl saying, you know, something about being strong. And if anything, I think it points to so many good men around us all over that are being good examples that the next generation can look up to and learn from. I actually find this to be one of the most positive and like heartwarming pieces I've seen on this whole conversation about how men should be in our environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I thought we had a perfect example of a man who was the opposite of toxic masculinity in President Obama. We had him for 8 years, and he was the role model that every child could look up to and say, hey, that's the kind of man I want to be. He was kind, he was smart.
He was a good dad, a good husband.
And he did everything he was supposed to. There was not a scintilla of scandal with that man. Remember that? 8 years. It's unusual.
Policy-wise, there was, but not in his personal life. That's correct.
Yeah. I mean, I have a teenage son, and what I've enjoyed so much is seeing my husband and my son interact. And I've heard my husband many, many times let my son know that it's okay to cry. It's okay to lose. It's okay, you know, and I've watched that dynamic. And so I do, and he has often told me that when he was growing up, the messaging was very different, you know, that it wasn't okay to cry when he was growing up. So I do think perhaps there's a change.
I think this message is different. This message isn't about crying. This message is about pay attention. And the old adage, you know, is that if someone did this to you, would you be comfortable with it? You know, that empathy thing that sometimes people forget. Because I think once someone can relate to your shoes, you know, maybe not by walking in them necessarily, but can relate to it, I think that makes things easier. So someone who sees someone acting as that boy was acting to, you know, go follow the girl, and the guy says, not cool.
Yeah,
don't do that. I think that's the important thing is good men are stepping up, and that's, I think, what they're saying.
Are you guys ready for this?
Yeah.
I don't love the ad.
Okay.
That's okay.
I know, my God. I know, I don't love the Gillette ad. Number one, I don't like virtue signaling from corporations as a general rule. I just don't like it. Number two, I think this conversation about toxic masculinity, I grew up in a military family. All the men in my family are in the military. We all shoot guns. And I think there's this sort of like backlash against being traditionally masculine as well. And I just want men to obviously not sexually harass anyone, not make any woman feel offensive, not do anything illegal. All those things they're doing in that ad are great. But I also think if you want to be like a UFC fighter, that's fine too. If you have a side of you that's just hyper testosterone and you want to, I think of people like James Shaw Jr., the Waffle House hero that stopped the gunman. There was masculinity or protectiveness involved. Not that he was like, oh my God, there's a shooting, I'm going to attack them.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean
that's not toxic masculinity.
I can hear people booing, and it's so ridiculous.
I don't think nobody's booed.
I just heard it. It's fine.
No.
What
it was a fart.
All I'm saying is that I take issue, and I would like to have a broader conversation about what it means to have toxic masculinity. And I think in general, when you're talking about don't catcall women, don't sexually harass them, that's all fine and good. But when you're going beyond that.
What you're talking about is a hero, first of all. So, of course, that's not toxic. That's the opposite.
And it's also showing, I love the word empathy, by the way, because that's something I think women carry so well. And I think that is showing empathy, those masculine men that jump in to save someone's life, because you're putting yourself literally in their shoes.
Men have been told
and women can do
that they can't show emotion. They can't show empathy. They can't cry. They can't show what historically have been feminine characteristics.
By the way, you know me well. I fit into all of that. I'm bad at showing my emotion. You know, all these things like in.
But you're a lot softer inside. It just, she's a bear on the outside.
Backstage and private.
Not like that on the inside.
But again, I don't think that's what we're talking about. I don't think we're talking emotions here. I think we're talking about stepping. Well, I think based on what I saw, what they're basically saying is don't be a jerk.
A lot of it is
don't be a jerk.
Do I need a shaving company to tell me that?
I think those messages can come from as many places as we can get them, because as we've seen, sometimes that it's the people have forgotten.
And we want
so maybe we want folks to do the right thing. Yes, I see.
That is true.
I see. We'll be right back.
show they used to have on CNN, and she told me she was on Nixon's enemies list.
Really?
And, yes, and then all of her,
She was?
yeah, and in all of her playbills, she would list her credits, and then she'd say, "I was on Nixon's enemies." I was so proud.
Why would she make that list?
You never
Why
know
does
people's
anybody make
politics.
any?
I know.
Why are we on Trump's hate tweet list?
Because
Proud of it.
because we're women people listen to.
Yeah.
That's why we're on
Yeah.
the
And
list.
same with
You
her.
know what they say? I think Franklin Delano Roosevelt, somebody quoted him, "Judge me by my enemies."
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good.
James Comey just tweeted that
Is that
out.
what he said?
Jim
that,
Comey
right?
just
She will
tweeted
always
that
be
out.
Dolly
Yeah.
Parton, though. No,
No,
I'm
she
sorry.
won't
I'm
be-
sorry.
That's all right. She'll be.
Hello, Dolly.
Hello, Dolly. She will always be
First
Hello,
of all,
Dolly.
there is only one Dolly Parton.
I know. I'm pregnant. I've got pregnancy brain. I apologize.
Well,
you know
that's
how
all
true,
right.
Dolly, but
That's
it's
all
true.
right
She will always
because
be
you
known
know
for that.
she was an amazing woman. And when you think of Carol, think about love because she was a big major love.
You friends with her?
Yeah, I adored her.
What a
I
performer.
adored her. She was amazing. And so we were talking about things that men also need to work on. And here's one. A recent test study on a male birth control injection had to be stopped because too many guys didn't want to deal with the side effects, which are essentially the same side effects as the female pill.
Yeah. They don't want it.
Yeah. Oh, poor you.
I really didn't believe that study.
No,
I thought that if men
you find the
had the
person's study?
opportunity to take a pill and have as much sex as they wanted without the possibility of getting somebody pregnant, I thought they'd go for it in a
Well, they read the
heartbeat.
side effects. You have nausea, weight gain, decreased libido. You got headaches.
Oh,
That's a deal
So
breaker.
That
they
was
read
the deal
side
breaker.
effects. I got to tell you. So I'm having this
I
convo with
didn't
my
see
husband
that.
now about.
You should be.
Well,
Late than never.
we're debating, like, are we done having kids? And I
Yeah.
hate birth control because of a lot of these reasons. And so I said, well, you're getting the snip. Like, it's done. Like,
Yeah.
and he's like, no. I said, well, you've contributed nothing physically to what we built our family on.
Yeah.
So you will get the snip. And he still refuses.
Doesn't
He
want
says,
the
well, no,
snip.
you'll already, if you get a C-section, which we don't know yet, but you'll be in surgery so they can just, tie the tubes.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
You know
No.
Can I-
Men just can't deal with
Let me
it.
tell
They
you
can't
something
do it.
about that. I had an
It's
ectopic
ridiculous.
pregnancy back in 1979.
You did?
Yes, I almost died. It was very serious.
Wow.
And so, why? Because I had
No, I said, wow.
I had an IUD, and that thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I had
I was
one of
in a
those
class
too.
action suit. Anyway, so when I'm on
did
this
not
visit
know that.
wheeling me into the OR, I say, well, you know what, you're going to have to take a tube out because what it is the little embryo gets stuck in your
Yeah.
fallopian tube, and then it ruptures and you bleed
really
internally.
dangerous.
Okay, so they're wheeling me in, and I say to the doctor, can you please take out the other tube, so then you're not going to get pregnant. And they said to me, I don't know if this is still true, we need 30 days for you to sign papers. You can't just say that as you can't.
Why?
Really?
Yes,
Yeah.
which I believe is I was 39 years old, okay? That is the most
Really?
sexist
Oh, so
law.
we need to make it
I knew
clear.
exactly what I was talking about
Are they
and
worried
what I
about
was
you maybe
doing.
being under anesthesia?
No, I wasn't under yet.
no.
I have no
It's-
idea. I've never been pregnant before, so I don't know.
Well, in the old days, you were lucky to get someone who even asked you. Because you used to have someone who would ask your husband
For your own informed
about
consent.
yes.
It's like The
Yes.
Handmaid's Tale.
Well, yeah,
do that in
it's
The
based
Handmaid's
on
Tale.
something. We'll be right back.
Yeah, and they would love that.
Why does this man say Vladimir Putin's been trying to kill him for a decade? How worried is he about President Trump's relationship with Russia? Bill Browder is live on The View next.
We are really strong women.
People need to hear what women have to say, and that's us.
That's what makes the show so good.
We will back you up. We will stand with you.
Anybody who wants to make it to the next level in politics has to come on this show.
I feel like there's no.
The president's relationship with Russia continues to cause concern. And right now we're getting insight from the man who was the real reason behind the infamous Trump Tower meeting and has spent the last decade of his life trying to avoid getting killed by Vladimir Putin. Please welcome the head of Global Magnitsky Justice Campaign, my friend Bill Browder. Hi.
Great to
I'm
be
so
here.
happy to have you on. So, for people that don't know your story, you were a fierce partner in fighting corruption with my father. You were the head of the largest foreign investor in Russia, and you were a vocal supporter of Putin at the time. And then everything changed. Can you explain to the audience why you are Vladimir Putin's #1 enemy?
Well, so what happened was I went out to Russia, started an investment fund. I discovered that everything was corrupt out there. I wanted to stop the corruption in the companies I invested in. I exposed it. And guess what? I exposed Vladimir Putin and all of his guys. And they didn't take too kindly to that. They expelled me from the country. They raided my offices. They seized all of our documents. And then they arrested, tortured, and murdered my lawyer, Sergei Magnitsky.
Yeah. Which is how we got the Sergei Magnitsky, the word that I got from my father. I think the understanding is that Russia and Vladimir Putin was basically using the United States as a slush fund, correct?
Well, basically, so what Vladimir Putin does is he does terrible financial crimes, like the one that Magnitsky exposed. He does, and he does them all over the place, and he's got all his guys doing it, and it's a whole corrupt system. They take all this money, and they don't want to keep it in Russia, because as easy as they stole it, it could be stolen from them. And so they put it in U.S. banks and in London banks and in Swiss banks. And one of the things that Vladimir Putin is scared most of all is having that money taken away.
Yeah.
He sends the money. I'm just going to check that. So he sends all this money, all these guys send the money to the United States. They put it in real estate here.
They put it in real estate. They put it in bank accounts. They put it in hedge funds.
And somebody has to launder that money, right? Because it's really not taxed.
Well, the worst thing is that there's a whole industry of people with nice suits and good accents and well-educated, same schools, everything, that launder the money and take the money and give them a wink and say, "Don't worry, Vlad, your money is going to be safe with us."
Right.
It was your name that was brought up in the infamous Trump Tower meeting.
Yeah.
It was also your name that was brought up in Helsinki at that press conference. Putin is obsessed with you.
Yeah.
I mean, he brings up your name every chance he gets. And then President Trump even called the idea of giving you over to the Russians, he called it an incredible offer in that Helsinki press conference. What was going through your mind when you heard President of the United States say that it was an incredible offer to give you up to the Russians?
Well, so I'm sitting there, and Vladimir Putin has been going after me for 10 years. They made death threats, kidnapping threats. They've tried to arrest me through Interpol. They've done all this kind of stuff. And I'm sitting there, and I was in the United States at the time that the Helsinki summit was going on. And I thought to myself, this guy is, when I'm talking about President Trump, is either very stupid, not having been briefed about my story, because my story is all over the place, or there's something wrong in his head, because to hand me over to the Russians is about the worst thing.
Were you scared that that could have happened?
Well, I think that he says a lot of really dumb stuff, but the system in America still works, and I didn't think that the Department of Justice or the U.S. courts would have handed me over to the Russians. But the fact that he said that was pretty unnerving, and it wasn't just me. There was 11 other people that they wanted to hand over, and the Senate actually had a vote. Should we hand these guys over? And they voted 98-0 not to hand us over. But it was only like an hour before the Senate vote that Trump finally walked it back 4 days later.
So he probably didn't know what he was saying, right? He's what they call a useful idiot. That's what I believe it was Lenin who used that phrase, that the Russians will use someone like him as a useful idiot.
Well, we don't know. We don't know.
We're not sure.
We don't know, but because it's not the first time that my name has come up, as you mentioned. On June 9th, 2016, Vladimir Putin sent a lawyer, a woman named Natalia Veselnitskaya, to Trump Tower to meet with Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, and Paul Manafort. And that meeting was all about me and all about Sergei Magnitsky, my lawyer, and the Magnitsky Act, which Putin hates so much. That's what it was about.
But they said it was about Russian adoptions, but that was a lie.
That was a lie. Russian adoptions were Putin banned Russian adoptions after the Magnitsky Act. The sanctions against Russia were put in place.
Can you explain what the Magnitsky Act is, in case they don't know?
It's very important, and this goes to Meghan's father, John McCain. When my lawyer, Sergei Magnitsky, was killed, I went to America, I went to Congress, and I met with members, Democrat Benjamin Cardin from Maryland, John McCain, and I told them the story of the murder of my lawyer, and I said, can we do something about this? And they came up with the Magnitsky Act, and the Magnitsky Act freezes the assets and bans the visas of people who killed Sergei Magnitsky and people who do similar types of terrible things. And Vladimir Putin hates this more than anything because his own money is at risk.
And it's what they were petitioning Don Jr. in Trump Tower about to get rid of.
So you've been following the money, right? And that's where a lot of people are saying you're going to catch Trump. You're going to catch him if you follow where his money's been. And maybe he's been colluding with the Russians some way. But you've had a closer eye on this than any of us. Have you seen anything unusual with Trump and money being spent, or?
Yeah, what do you know?
Well, so I have spent, since Sergei Magnitsky was killed, he was killed for uncovering a massive $230 million corruption scheme. I've been following the money, and I've spent 9 years finding out where that money went, and we found out where that money went, and I've learned everything there is to learn about money laundering. And the first thing I can tell you is that money leaves an indelible trail. If any money has been transferred to the banking system, you will find that money. And so far, we've not seen any overlap between the Magnitsky killing and the money laundering connected to that and the Trump campaign. But we found a lot of other overlap. In fact, we found that Vladimir Putin got some of that money, which is why he hates me so much.
And he's, you know, as we speak, he's trying to kill you. As we speak.
As we speak.
He's Putin's #1 enemy.
Yeah,
here.
I mean, aren't you scared a little bit to be in the world, walking around?
How do you sleep at night?
Yeah.
I sleep like a baby. I wake up crying every... but seriously, I don't live in fear. And because you cannot live in fear, because if you live in fear, then they've already got you. They've already got you.
Yeah. Final thing, I think it's been bizarre for those of us who know about the murderous KGB dictator that is Vladimir Putin. Why do you think it is that President Trump is so reticent to ever say anything even remotely critical of Vladimir Putin?
Good question.
It just makes no sense because it doesn't serve his political purposes. It's not like his base loves Russia. I mean, it doesn't serve, and neither does the Republican establishment love Russia. And so it doesn't serve, it makes no sense unless there's some other information that we don't have available to us. And the wonderful thing is everyone asks me to predict what's going to happen with the Mueller investigation. I don't know, but Mueller knows. Mueller knows everything, and we'll find out.
And
soon.
everything's been unturned.
Thank you. Thank you so much to my friend Bill Browder. We'll be right back. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for coming.